Why did God tell the Israelites that they couldn't wear clothes of mixed fibers?
Yeah, that actually comes out of Deuteronomy 22:11, and it gives a specific example of wool and linen. And I don't know the answer. I've never heard pastor speak on it, but you're mixing an animal skin with a plant skin. And so I asked my wife, who's a seamstress and fabric knowledgeable, and she talked about, well, there's different types of fibers for different conditions, and so it's maybe very practical, but there's also different tensile strengths and stretchability, and it may just be very practical of why would you mix these, because then the two don't go together and you would have a fabric that one fiber stretches, the other fiber doesn't. But the other possibility is you're mixing an animal source with a plant source, and one's the shedding of blood, and the other's a plant base. Linen comes from flax.
Yeah, the answer is never given in the Bible. It's just stated as a rule, and in reality, God has the right to make such rules, and we can speculate on some reasons for it, which include things like you mix wool and you mix fiber. Are you going to end up with your dress sparking all the time? Because those are possibilities as well, particularly if it's a windy day and the oil off the wool has dried out a bit. You may end up burning yourself down. But there's never an answer given to that. But I suspect your last comment is valid, that animal and plant fibers do not mean the same thing. So Adam and Eve's plant fiber covering was not as good as the woolen or the fur covering that God would have given them. I suspect that's in the way to go. But don't make it a church doctrine. There's never an answer given by God.
God gives us a lot of very specific details, and you wonder why. And lots of times I think it's just, he's going to see, are you going to obey us? Or are you going to obey him?
Well, I think there's one other aspect, perhaps we can talk at another issue. There are quite a few rules given, because you will notice that all through the Old Testament, from Exodus onwards, it never talks about the adults of Israel. It only talks about the children of Israel. And the purpose of the law was to cut Israel off from everybody else, right? So that they could not easily mix. They still can't. If you've got a person who's Jewish and living by the law, then even trying to have a meal with them is a nightmare, right? Because they have so many rules that cut them off from you, because the faith of Israel was that of an immature child. But as the scripture says, now that Christ has come, that you're no longer children under a tutor. The tutor has come and he's died for you. So in Christianity, many of those rules go because they're no longer needed to actually cut you off from the Assyrians or the Babylonians or whatever. Your job is to go and tell the Babylonians, hey guys, you can't sacrifice blood this way. You have to serve Christ. And I think that's part of the purpose, is to add to Israel and isolate them from the other culture, which just would do whatever they liked. So your last point is a good one, Glenn. They do it because God said, here's a rule for the people of Israel.
Yes.
Well, getting back to that question, I think there's a certain amount of symbolic a message there that the people of Israel were meant to separate themselves and not get mixed up with the impurity of the surrounding cultures and worship the other gods, so that it is a sort of there's a symbolic message there of purity. But there's also a practical message that until we had modern textile technology, if you mix different fibers from very different sources, they don't wash as well. And so things will shrink at different levels, and so they you end up with distortion of the fabric. So there's actually a good practical reason there as well, in terms of maintaining and how long the fibers will last.